Congress dumped nearly 34,000 Epstein files overnight, but is this transparency or just DC political theater? Blaze News, The Mandate, starts right now. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Jill Savage, joined by Editor-in-Chief Matthew Peterson.
I did not think I was going to talk about Epstein this morning.
But
we are.
Chris Bedford, our DC politics editor, has no chance to get away. We're in his town here for NatCon all week, and it is your favorite topic.
Somehow I knew we would be talking about Epstein. We're always talking about Epstein in one way or another.
Well, that's because this time Speaker Mike Johnson and Oversight Chairman James Comer actually quietly pulled together something that you almost never see. It's been a rare bipartisan closed-door meeting. They had 6 women who survived Jeffrey Epstein's abuse, and for at least 2 of them, it was the first time that they had ever spoken out. So Johnson called the meeting both heartbreaking and infuriating, and he was pointing out that some of these women were groomed for more than 30 years, Matt. So when we look at this, right, there's so much that's happening behind closed doors, and we still just don't know, are we going to get the transparency that we want, or is this more of the actual political theater?
There's not much new, but what is new is that, we're told that these women have provided names of, additional persons of interest. So that is interesting. Who are those people? Will that come out? Will we talk about that? I don't know. But that is interesting. And we also have about, 1,000 pages, if I can believe our people on this, 1,000 pages that are new flight logs from him flying out of the country. But what we don't have so far is actual names. And that's what most people want.
Well, Chris, when we look at this, right, so there are 34,000 pages, like MP just said. 1,000 pages of them are new. But I found it interesting because instead of actually uploading the files as a PDF and everybody can just hit the download button like we all can do, it's 2025, like we figured out how to do this, they actually went through and formatted it. So every single page was uploaded as an individual image. So it's actually much, much more difficult to download and see. And it just feels like when we see these kind of obstacles put in, I'm like, oh, are we trying to be annoying here at this point? Because we see this, right? The files are unsearchable. They're barely even navigatable. Like when we look at this, it's just so hard. And the government, when they were uploading them, actually hit their limit for the download. So you couldn't even download them all at one time. It's like, are you trying to give us the transparency or not?
Never underestimate the House of Representatives' tech skills. I mean, BlackBerry literally kept a model running longer than BlackBerry was available to the public to keep Congress happy. Because that's just the style that they have. That's the way that they went. They're not very good at technology. Generally, my thinking on that is if you can chalk it up to being a Momo, then it probably wasn't evil. And the documents are out. The reality is there's more documents to come. Some of this is helpful. It's just a mix here. One, it's kind of attention that Congress probably should have paid to this from the very beginning, which is bringing in victims, having closed-door meetings, which are more serious than open-door meetings. Open-door meetings are theater for MSNBC, CNN, and Fox. They're not real. There aren't real questions. It's just, let me see how many points I can get. Let me see how many points I can put on the board. Can you guys cut an Instagram reel of that time I yelled at the witness? Don't cut the Instagram reel of the time the witness made me look like an idiot because I didn't have my facts right. And then put it out there, and I'll be a hero. But closed-door sessions are much more serious. It's kind of wild. You'll see how people's behavior changes when the cameras are off and they're actually just talking. Something more boring, but it can allow for more emotional stuff too and more honest interactions between the parties. They should have done this from the beginning. This is the kind of transparency that I think would have been a helpful step in the right direction had it were not for the missteps of the overpromising from the campaign trail and the Trump administration, where they said, we're going to figure this out. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Let Congress do it and let the the administration work with them on what they're able to do and work with the courts, because all three branches are now involved, work with the courts and what they're able to release. And yeah, and you have tens of thousands of primary documents or investigative documents that are being released. That is a step towards transparency, even if they are a pain in the butt to search, which I don't doubt at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's never in government's interest to release data and information in a way that's usable. And this is still true throughout the country where, I remember in California, you had to 10 cents a copy, you had to pay for the copies, and you get handwritten pages of campaign finance records. And the reason for that, of course, is that it's not in their interest to give it to you. Here, they're trying. We should also say, I don't know how new it is, but at least some of it's new. This stuff about how Epstein did not appear suicidal. I mean, he was the suicide risk assessment was, he was fine. And that the lines from it are: he denied any past or present suicidal ideation, intention, or plan. He denied ever engaging in any suicide attempts or self-injurious behavior in the past. He didn't appear to be an immediate threat to himself, and he denied, having any suicidal thoughts.
Well, the hardest way to kill yourself in prison is to tell everyone you want to kill yourself, when it makes them look really bad if you kill yourself. And I don't want to judge before all the facts are in.
It's all about how you look,
Yeah. I don't want to judge before all the facts are in, but I'm starting to think that this Jeff Epstein character was a manipulator, a sociopath who uses emotional intelligence, or feigned emotional intelligence, to convince people of things that maybe weren't always true.
Yeah. Well, the overall, suicide risk for the inmate was said to be low, and overall chronic suicide risk for this inmate was said to be absent. So there you go.
He can hide his intentions. I actually don't know how Epstein died, and I think it's really suspicious, his death. I'm not actually arguing that. Jeffrey Epstein potentially making it seem like he's something he's not, or his brain is somewhere it's not. Right. It fits. It's kind of like, remember when George Bush met Putin for the first time? He looked into his eyes and said, "I saw a man I could trust." Yeah. Well, Putin was a KGB spy. I mean, he rose to charge of Russia.
We're not talking about people who are open books.
No,
that's for sure.
Well, we see that Chairman Comer has subpoenaed, a bunch of people. We talked about that on the show, but those subpoenas are going to start coming up here within the next few weeks. And there are 6 former AGs. Bill and Hillary Clinton are on that list as well. And now we actually see Thomas Massie working alongside Ro Khanna. And it's a weird pairing there with the two of them. But they're going through and trying to force a House vote on the Epstein files. Now, it's not like, if you've been paying attention at all, Thomas Massie is the one who has the ire of Donald Trump, who gets all of the truth posts written about him. So do we actually expect to see anything happening from the congressional side about the Epstein files?
Not with Massie at the helm. I mean, even people who like Massie personally, which are a good number of people, he's a very funny guy, nice guy. Don't like him professionally. He doesn't work well with others. He doesn't have political allies. He is very isolated right now, and he's very likely to not win re-election through the primary process. Republicans have targeted him. A lot of money's coming in against him. I was in meetings 10 years ago, maybe, with Thomas Massie, and he was with the guys who were part of the hard right, and they were all getting committed to something, and they'd be doing this or that. And he would just say, "Yeah, I'm not helping you guys in anything." This is the room of his friends, and everyone would just roll their eyes. And I heard one guy say, "Well, that's Massie," and he's right there. It reminds me. He's kind of like that, like a Ron Paul figure in that way. I remember some Texas constituents the story of them going to meet with Congressman Ron Paul to talk about some NASA developments, because a lot of that was going on in Texas, and his response was, "Space exploration is not in the U.S. Constitution." Mm-hmm. I mean, it's sometimes hard to work with congressmen like that, but you also need them. They can be a bit of a conscience. I just think this is a shtick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll say the subpoenas I'll defend a little bit. I think in a court of public opinion, it's not a bad idea to say, "Hey, what the hell happened here?"
Oh, I agree.
So I think that's okay, because you could actually probably achieve something there, right? And say, okay, why was this bouncing around for so long? Why did nothing happen? But in terms of this thing that everyone wants, which is a list of all the wrongdoers, that's the hardest thing to get. And
because there are so many
wouldn't hold your breath.
There's so many people who, even if you watch these Epstein documentaries, which of course my wife does, which means I watch them from time to time.
Vicariously, osmosis.
Yeah, there are a lot of different people who are coming through there, groundskeepers, artisans, famous people and rich people who he wouldn't have exposed to that sort of behavior. And then, of course, it's like you can be up to a lot of wrongdoing in your house, but you don't invite every house guest to take part.
Right.
You don't walk into the baby shower and say, "Who wants a shot of whiskey?"
Exactly.
It's
no, you can have people flying to the island who did nothing
Yeah.
wrong and actually were just there and weren't part of his crimes. And so sorting that out is a big deal. But of course, there were a lot of people there who were engaged in some naughty stuff. And
I think there were some bad things going on in Epstein Island.
I do think, I don't think the temple, the little temple on the island,
that doesn't get enough attention, honestly.
It does not.
It does not. It's obviously satanic, right?
The thing that I like to say is the most normal thing in the world, and normal Americans, like we all live in this technological age, so no one thinks this, but the most normal thing in the world throughout all of human history would be, oh yeah, and then there was like a little rich people sex cult. I mean that's normal. That's normal in most societies. And if you're Christian, it's like, and sometimes there's a demon and sometimes there's not. It's just a dude who wants to do his thing. But that is what happens. That's where things go.
Always has been.
When civilization goes awry.
Well, I want to take a minute to just thank you for watching and listening to this show. It's because of people like you watching that we're able to produce content like this. And Blaze TV exists because people like you refuse to settle down for all the watered down coverage that's out there, all the endless spin and clickbait headlines. It leads to a lot of misinformation. Now, this has never been about one voice or one company. It's about a movement of people who refuse to sit on the sidelines, who are actually willing to take a stand. That's why Blaze TV matters. By subscribing, you're standing shoulder to shoulder with a community that believes that America is worth fighting for. Blaze Media not only exists because people like you step up and join us and help us drive the mission forward. So when you subscribe, you're not just supporting a show, you're making your voice count. You're ensuring that the truth has a platform today and for the next generation. So join Blaze TV today at blazetv.com/BNT and get $20 off right now. And you can get it for as low as $8 a month on the annual plan. So you can start being a part of shaping the future. It's blazetv.com/BNT. Bedford, you have a Beltway brief that is coming out. Take us through what you have in the latest edition.
So this one's called the American Rights Howard Zinn problem, or you could have called it's William Bloom problem, or it's Noam Chomsky problem. And those are different left-wing historians who excel at their craft of alternative counter-narrative histories. And this was something the left excelled at over the years. When we were all growing up, when our parents were growing up, the left always had alternative histories. They'd come out with these things like Thomas Jefferson actually was a slave owner. He fathered children with one of his slaves. It seems very likely. And that blows your history up, kind of blows up some of the hero story that we'd heard, the more simplified versions of these people, as if they weren't humans, if they didn't do bad things, as if they weren't men of their times, as if they didn't have serious faults, some of them. And a lot of that, it was a problem on the American left that everyone laughed at for a long time. Because when you give someone a fact that is counter-narrative and is true, it's kind of like an endorphin release. It makes you feel, when you drop something the other person didn't know, it makes you feel like you are just smarter than that person. But what's essential is to remember the context of the broader histories. So George Washington, one of the wealthiest men in the colonies, owned slaves. A lot of people, that's kind of like what they know. Maybe first president. They don't know veteran of multiple wars. They don't know that they don't understand just how responsible he is for the republic actually succeeding. They don't know that he's one of the only people in all of human history to voluntarily relinquish power. They don't know about his warnings. They don't know about the government he helped construct. They don't know about the different warring parties that he kept apart. They don't know that people like him and Jefferson and other flawed men created the republic that led to really among the first freeings of human beings from servitude, which was, if you read the Bible, a complete and total norm for all of human history, for all civilizations. It's the English and the Americans saying, no, we're not going to do that anymore. And you're seeing a lot of this with the right now on World War II. And it's particularly fertile ground with the youth, because the youth were lied to by the American regime very dramatically. The young people coming up right now were told they were kicked out of school. They had the internet. They were told kind of the Howard Zinn version of this, which is all of your heroes are false, which is ridiculous. All of your heroes are bad people, which is ridiculous. It's bad to be white. It's bad to be a male. It's bad to have parents who are successful. It's bad to have opportunities. It's bad to do this. And they're rebelling. And there are a lot of historians out there with interesting counter-narrative historical takes. For example, maybe Winston Churchill wasn't as great a guy as sometimes is said. Maybe he had faults. Maybe he was capable of brutal decision-making. Maybe the United States shouldn't have been allied with Joseph Stalin in World War II. Now, that makes sense. Joseph Stalin was a monster. Joseph Stalin took over half of Europe. And my grandfather remembered growing up hearing Uncle Joe on the radio. That's what the newscasters would call him. This guy was not a very uncle-like figure, unless he was a bad uncle from Epstein Island. But once you hear these sorts of things, you start to realize, okay, I've been lied to. What else have I been lied to? And you start to ask things that, without the broader historical knowledge and context, well, if Churchill did bad things, and Stalin was a bigger monster than anyone on the planet at the time, and we allied with Stalin, were the Nazis the good guys? I'm going to cut to the chase here and say something that's shocking. No, the Nazis were not the good guys. They were very bad, weird, creepy sex cult pagans who were destroyed in the heart of Europe. And it was a serious issue. Or you point out to someone, why did the United States target the two most Catholic cities in Japan for the bombing? Well, that's an interesting question. It deserves historical context of what else was going on. A lot of people who might point out that fact won't know the fact that there was significant more damage done to other, like the capital city of Japan by the firebombing. Significantly more people killed in the capital city of Japan. But they don't know that. So they take these things and they build around it without the historical context. And I hate to sound like a jerk here, but these are advanced books. Some of them are really interesting. A lot of these inconvenient truths are true. But
Al Gore.
But when they exist outside of the context and the understanding of the broader historical narrative, then they are dangerous. It's learning advanced magic before you've learned basic magic, and then you become a danger to everyone around you. And that's, I feel, is a risk. And they'll slip in complete fabrications and lies. Like, how many people have confidently told you over the years that Christopher Columbus was a rapist and a monster because they read it in a Howard Zinn book? That's all. They don't know that that's all based on the letters of one person, not corroborated by anyone else, not taken seriously by anyone else who wanted Christopher Columbus's job. It doesn't fit with anything else that we know about the man, but it's just repeated because it's counter narrative. And you get a kind of high off of that. And I think it's a dangerous thing that the American right is dabbling in quite a bit right now.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
I know that was long. I'm sorry.
I think it was good. Howard Zinn, right, is the perfect model for this. And the main problem is, as you say, his entire narrative is America's bad. Okay, like, I'm going to shock you with everything you like is actually bad. And like you say, especially if you're young, you get a little bit of a rush from that. As you say, the endorphins.
I read them all as a kid.
Now, here's the problem, though, that I think the context that for everything you're talking about is the fact that people are just ignorant. I mean, they're not learning. And I spent 3 years evaluating, right, testing thousands of teachers and students throughout the country in K through 12 world. And this was 15 years ago. No one knows anything. They're not learning actual history, right? And they haven't been for a while. So, of course, if you're on the right now, it doesn't matter that you're on the right. You're still ignorant of what the actual history is. And so there's no nuance. So, history and politics used to go together. If you wanted to learn politics, you'd study history. Why? Because you'd learn, how political decisions are made, how they're tough. Statesmanship is about making difficult decisions, right? That would involve like nuance and trying to figure things out when they're not clear. That's why you get the big bucks. That's why you get the statue, because it's not clear what you're supposed to do. And so all of this is I think, simplified because they're just ignorant. They have no idea of like basic historical fact and to build off of, right? So there's nothing there. And then you drop in these like well, did you know actually,
Exactly.
and that, you agree though, that's the context, right? It's just, we're really ignorant.
Yeah.
We don't read stuff.
And
we don't know anything.
You're not made a genius by knowing something that's counter narrative. You have to know a lot more than that in order to place it properly.
Yeah.
And that's why I love the stuff. That's why I love the Claremont Fellowship so much. And I love the stuff that you did there, because it's really easy to say, actually, Lincoln was a tyrant.
Right.
It's like, why? He suspended habeas corpus. Habeas corpus says you can suspend it in cases of rebellion.
Yeah. And you had
it says it in the text. It's not like a reading of it.
Coming up behind him before they called up the troops and blowing up train tracks so they couldn't bring troops to D.C. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, I see what was going on.
It says it in the text right there. Mm-hmm. Or the militias that marched through the streets of New York and the North in the lead up to the Civil War. I think they're called the Eyes Wide Open, something like that. I've heard that put out as a, would you know that Lincoln was such a dictator that he had his own essay? I don't think those things actually comport with what was going on. Well, he freed the slaves extra constitutionally. No, he didn't. He freed them only in liberated territories, which was a burden to him.
But Chris, I'm sure that this is going to get much better with AI coming into play and everybody just putting their brain and, oh, you know what? Chat will just tell me. It'll tell me everything I need to know. I'm sure things are going to get much, much better.
AI, I love, my wife actually scared AI the other day with a story. And it was Elon Musk's AI too. She was working on a story about the South Africa back and forth. And I said, ask Grok who got there first, the Boers or the Zulu. And Grok basically melted down and absolutely panicked. It's like, wait. Nope, didn't want to touch that. Maybe Elon will get that fixed.
Didn't want to touch that. The Grinch wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
10.5.
Thank you. Good call. You know what? 5 foot goes west. The Grinch. We have all the references here on The Mandate. Don't go anywhere. The Florida AG will join us right after this. Well, a Florida federal judge appointed by Obama, of course, has ordered that Alligator Alcatraz be shut down. The facility needs to be dismantled, and all the imprisoned illegal aliens need to be transferred elsewhere. So here to expose the judicial overreach threatening his state is Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier. So much easier to say for me early in this morning. So there's so much going on in Florida right now. Thanks so much for your time.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I mean, when we look at Alligator Alcatraz, we loved it, right? Like the headlines around this were great. President Trump stopping by to tour the facilities. We loved it. But that means, of course, that the judges, the liberal judges, are not going to love it. They're trying to get this all thrown out. But what's the actual situation there on the ground in Florida right now?
Sure. Well, this judge granted an injunction to close the facility here in about a month under NEPA grounds. So, federal environmental regulations she believes needed to be followed, even though this is state land, a state facility, and it's run by state operatives. So if you applied this, then every state jail would have to go through NEPA, which, developers know takes years. So she's wrong on the law. We've appealed the ruling to the 11th Circuit. There's expedited briefing right now, and we hope to prevail. But at the end of the day, nothing is going to stop us from delivering for the Trump administration on immigration enforcement. We've got numerous other facilities that are up and running, and, we hope to get Alligator Alcatraz going again soon. So it's still operating now. She ruled that no new detainees can come in. We're going to keep deporting people out of there. So at some point, the numbers will be low, but we hope to prevail on appeal.
Was this expected, James? Is this
Absolutely. The minute, she was assigned the case, we kind of knew where it was going. She's ruled against us in another immigration case, actually held me in contempt in that case, where she asked me to direct law enforcement across the state to stand down on enforcing our immigration laws. And a lot of these law enforcement don't work for me. Local sheriffs are independently elected. They were not parties to the case, but she wanted them to be bound by her ruling. So she asked me to direct them to stand down. I don't have the authority to do that. So I told her that, and ultimately she held me in contempt. But this is another example of a judge pushing their own policy views when nobody elected them to do so. But at the end of the day, we'll fight back and we will prevail.
Well, Florida is one of the states that's leading on immigration and trying to take it back within your state's rights. And so just how did the idea for Alligator Alcatraz come up in the first place?
Well, our law enforcement has been doing a great job of enforcing immigration laws. We've been delegated authority by the federal government under 287G. All of our sheriffs, our state police, even like our campus police at universities, everybody has this authority to go out and help ICE and Homeland Security do their job. So our number of arrests start going up and up and up. I think we're over 3 times the next state, on immigration enforcement. Which leads to a bed space issue as you're detaining people. So we needed space. I saw the president talking about reopening, the original Alcatraz and thought it was a creative idea. I don't know if it can happen or not. And we've had this plot of land that we've been thinking about for a long time. What do we do with it? It's an old airport, abandoned airport, surrounded by the swamp. And it just seemed like the natural Alcatraz, but it can actually hold thousands of people instead of, of tens or hundreds. So we opened it up. It's been working very well. I think it also incentivizes people illegally in this country. Take the federal government up on their offer to self-deport. Take the $1,000, go back where you came from. Otherwise, you could end up in alligator Alcatraz.
Now, it seems like this started a race to the top, right? I mean, because it inspired many people in other states. Can you speak a little bit to what red states need to do right now? I think Florida is leading on this issue, to really increase the amount of deportations and encourage people to leave.
Yeah. Well, the Trump administration's doing a terrific job of enforcing the law. We don't know. I mean, we need to take advantage of every minute that he's in office to bring back American sovereignty and secure our border. So Republican states need to team up. We need to help the federal government. Before we got all the new funding and resources in the big, beautiful bill, it was even a bigger prerogative, I think, for red states. But now, if we're going to bring back our country, we've got millions of people to deport. We're, a small chunk of the way there, but we've got to make up for, decades of abdicated responsibility.
What do we need to do with all these judges that are coming in and just trying to overrule things in states, and it's particularly with Florida, but federal judges, we see this all the time right now as well. It's like, hey, these are the people that we elected to go do these things, and they're trying to implement the mandate and what people want. And yet all these judges all across the country right now are just saying, oh, you know what? That doesn't sound like a good idea for us. So we're going to throw it out on whatever grounds that they're doing this.
The short answer is we need to fight back. We need to use every tool we have. The other branches of government need to flex and push the boundaries. Where you have judges pushing policy, not following the law, trying to impose their will on an entire country, we've got to fight back. It's nice to see the Supreme Court reevaluating, some prior opinions. And, we just need to think and use every political power we have. I think conservatives, naturally, we end up losing in court a lot because our nature is to be conservative. Conservative judges don't want to hear cases that they're not supposed to hear. They want to respect jurisdictional boundaries. But at the end of the day, if an activist judge is going to push policy on the American people when nobody elected that judge, we've got to fight back with everything we've got.
One of the things, I'm ignorant about this. Are we keeping track of the people? First off, I assume the plan is, right, if we enforce the law, as you say, alligator Alcatraz is up and running, then you're going to have people self-deport because they're going to become afraid and realize, I don't want to deal with this.
I think we're up to almost 2 million self-deportations right now, which is a big deal. If we're going to really put a dent in the number of people illegally in this country, a lot of it is going to have to be self-deportations.
Yeah, and so that you see that as increasing. You see good signs. 2 million is great.
Absolutely.
Do you think there'll be actual hope? A lot of people in our audience, they want to see mass deportation for real. And you get this argument that goes back and forth. Is that even possible? Will the Republicans actually, does that be effective and make that happen? You're sort of leading here. And you think that is possible. We could see, millions more leave in the next few years.
I think we certainly could. I mean, we've got to step up our law enforcement operations. Again, Congress passed a bill that provided significant funding and resources to add ICE agents, to provide funding for border security. So we've got to get going, and we got to go fast. I think it's a great sign to see DOD and DHS working on the admin law judges. The left cares so much about due process. They didn't care when people were flooding in the border. They were just handed a piece of paper to show up at some court date like 4 years from then, and nobody did that. But now it's all about process, due process. So if we can have that basic process, which is really just to determine that you are illegally in the country, then we could up the number of deportations.
Don't you think that I remember talking to Harmeet Dillon years ago about this, and we wrote an op-ed together it was about big tech. And her point was similar to what you're saying with immigration, but with many issues, the problem a lot of times is just enforcing the law as written, right? And prioritizing what you go after. And that's pretty much your job as Attorney General. Can you speak a little bit to that? Because I feel like there's a lot of people on the right who've been frustrated in the last, 10 years. And,
Right.
and a lot of this comes down to, her point was, there's plenty of law that just needs to be enforced on these big issues. And it's not being,
especially in the civil rights area, which she knows well. I mean, most states have civil rights code. And so as we've had DEI and ESG and all these things, everybody's like, oh, we need to pass a new law to protect, women from men in sports. You don't need new laws. Your civil rights laws probably get you there. But going back to immigration, President Trump didn't need a bunch of new laws. He just flipped the switch to turn enforcement back on, and how refreshing it's been. But as states, we also need to take further action to make our states less hospitable to illegal aliens. In Florida, we've certainly done that. We prohibited, you cannot get a driver's license. You certainly cannot get one of these commercial truckers' licenses that we now see other states have been handing out to people that don't even speak English, which results in dangerous crashes on the road that are killing people.
Well, with that in mind, how do you go through and just maybe encourage other red states to join in this fight? Because this all sounds very good to us. And we're like, yes, we want to see more of this.
We certainly encourage them, and we peer pressure them where they don't want to, jump in voluntarily on their own. But we're working together. I think a lot of red states, again, are excited to see a federal government bringing back American sovereignty. And we'll do everything we can with every minute we've got.
Have you seen improvement there? I mean, in terms of the last really 5 to 10 years, with other red state attorney generals sort of taking more and more action? You see,
we've got a great lineup of Republican AGs. I think you've got people that are aggressive and want to protect individual liberties of Americans, and I believe the AGs are kind of the first line of defense when it comes to protecting states' rights and protecting the rights of citizens in those states.
We're talking about illegals, and the U.S. Census has been a hot topic issue as well. I know that a lot of people are like, hey, you know what? The 2020, there was a lot of stuff going on in 2020. We don't know, COVID time, pandemic, there was so much. But when you look at the census, are you one of those people that's like, okay, you know what, maybe we should take another look at this, not wait till 2030, because there was so much that was happening in 2020, and they're trying to go through and count the number of illegals. And I mean,
look, the census, a lot of people, average people at home, they just view this as some number crunching bureaucratic effort, to count the population every 10 years. But the reality is, it is a monumental act in determining electoral power for the states that results in deciding who our next president is, in deciding how many members of Congress a state gets, and deciding billions of dollars in federal funding and how it's allocated. And we've been giving disproportionately high amounts of electoral power to sanctuary states that are filled with a bunch of illegals. That is not what our founders would have wanted. Our Constitution was written for we, the people of the United States. The Constitution, the government is supposed to serve U.S. citizens. If you allow California and other states to get heightened power based on just who happens to be present in the state, when some bureaucrat walks around counting people, that could be easily abused. You could have foreign adversaries flooding certain jurisdictions at times of the year in order to sway an election one way or the other. So we've kind of created this problem over time, just the precedent of how we've done it. But I believe it's legally wrong, and I commend President Trump for wanting to address it immediately. But it needs to happen yesterday if we're actually going to get this done and do it right.
I think this is one of those issues where once people are aware of it, it's shocking. It's shocking to common sense, right? But unfortunately, we don't live in a world governed by common sense, but we do hopefully live in a world governed by the rule of law. So how do you see this playing out in the courts?
Well, I mean, it's going to get litigated. Obviously, the Census Bureau under Trump's first term tried to ask a question about whether or not you're a U.S. citizen. And despite that question having been asked for over 150 years before President Obama took it off the census, the Supreme Court said the Trump administration did not go about the right process of asking it. So, it will be litigated, hotly contested. But at the end of the day, I think anybody that really opens their eyes to the fact that states are giving power to people that cannot legally vote, it is common sense. And it's in line with our Constitution to make this correction. So it's going to be a long fight, but I'm optimistic that we could prevail.
Well, hey, we're here in Washington, D.C., and one of the things you notice, first off, the weather is beautiful. I'm loving my life walking around this fair city. But you notice something walking around here, something that you've been talking about. I see commenting on the left. You notice people in uniforms,
Right.
In camouflage uniforms walking around. I heard it's something to do with fascism. I don't know.
We've heard a lot of it on the streets. The people are very convinced on the streets right now.
It's amazing. Stopping gang violence, stopping murders, how controversial it could be.
What is it like to see these people critique this, again, common sense policy for you, sitting there as Attorney General in Florida and coming up here?
It's mind-boggling, but I think the left is really shooting itself in the foot when they fight back on things like this. And I think the same is true with border security. I mean, the American people, no matter what party you are, they want a safe and sovereign country. They want their kids to be safe from dangers like fentanyl. And at the end of the day, you see some mayors now speaking up saying, well, hey, actually, this thing, public safety is kind of nice. We need more of it. So, God, I mean, I'm even hesitant to stay at hotels in D.C. sometimes. I mean, the Marriott downtown, there was a shooting the last time I was here. But you know what? It feels pretty dang safe right now, with the added support.
It's been crazy just to see, especially Chicago has been the one that has been getting all the headlines for all the crime that they have there. And they're like, you know what? We like our crime.
Yeah.
We're going to keep it. You guys are not going to come in here. You're not going to make our streets safer. And we're like, hold on. Wait a minute. Right? Is this crazy right now? Is this where we live, that just because it's a Republican idea, we can't go through and have people be safe in their own streets?
I have nothing to add. That's exactly, it's unbelievable.
But when you look at just the differences right now that we're seeing between the right and the left as a whole, right? Like the divide is growing even greater right now.
Right.
If it's something that has been a Republican idea, well, we have to reject that wholly. We can't allow any of that. And I think that Trump has been doing a good job with this. We've talked about this on the show before, like the 80-20 issues. He's putting every 80-20 issue up. And he is like, you want to go through and you want to defend crime? Go ahead.
I tell people in Florida, I mean, there are thousands of good policy ideas we could discuss. Thousands. I mean, we can always make things better for families and our citizens. But none of them matter if you don't have public safety.
Mm-hmm.
Like, until you check that box, you really shouldn't move on to everything else. And I think the president knows that. At the end of the day, we've got people flocking to Florida still, even in the post-COVID era.
Mm-hmm.
And we had, several 100,000 more registered Democrats back when the governor got elected. Today, we're almost at like 1.5 million more registered Republicans, because people are coming to the state. And when they buy new homes, they tell the builders, they do a survey and they all say, I came here because of safety. I lived in Washington, D.C., and my neighbor, on Capitol Hill got stabbed walking to the car in the morning. And I don't want to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame them. Everybody wants safety for their families. Then we can work on everything else.
Can we speak just real quick on, speaking of safety, on the drug issue? Because I feel like it gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
It's not really part of like the culture wars anymore. We still face a real problem with drug abuse in this country. The president just tweeted out a boat full of people that is no more, that was blown up, Venezuelan, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But you're in Florida. That's always been an issue. You're our South.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on where that battle is now?
Well, it's certainly still raging. I think the best way to combat it is to make examples out of people. So, I mean, we've heightened penalties. If you are caught distributing fentanyl, it is a much higher penalty today than it was 6 years ago.
I just got to interrupt you. So what you're saying is if you put people in jail,
That's a deterrent.
crime goes down?
That's right. That's right. So we're putting people
I
in
didn't learn that in
jail.
grad school.
I don't believe in plea deals. I'm not a soft on crime guy. I want to get danger off the streets as long as possible. And today it comes in different forms. I mean, marijuana laced with fentanyl, it's killing kids that are not, hard drug abusers. And families are shocked. And a lot of it's coming from China. It's a new warfare that they've flooded through the open border to get into communities across the country. We're seeing stuff, in the new form of vapes and things coming from China in convenience stores, and people don't even know what chemicals are really in it. But at the end of the day, it's just tough enforcement, tough penalties. Let's show people, if you want to do this, you better be ready to live in a jail cell for the rest of your life.
The country changed when Ron DeSantis was elected as the governor of Florida. It could have gone drastically one way, and it, thankfully for the country, went the way that it did. Just talk a little bit about Florida, the trajectory that we have seen in the state, and honestly, because what it means for the country has been very significant.
Sure. Well, for people that don't remember, Ron DeSantis won by the most narrow of margins in Florida. We were very much a purple state. We are not anymore. And then COVID hit shortly thereafter, and he made tough decisions. He studied the data. Any study that was out there in the world, he reviewed it, got his hands on it, and ultimately made tough decisions that other governors were not willing to make, to keep our schools open, to keep our churches open, to keep our businesses open. And Florida came out of COVID, now we're known as the free state of Florida. It's literally on the road signs when you drive in. That came out of COVID. We are ranked number one in almost every single meaningful metric, from GDP growth to new business formations to education standards. You name it, we're the best. And a lot of that is because we did not alter our way of life. We kept things open. We dealt with adverse health consequences to the best of our ability. But at the end of the day, we did not suffer any worse than any other state. And, our kids, our families, they didn't have their life disrupted. So his leadership, I think, inspired a lot of other states to stay strong. And at the end of the day, people moved with their feet, and they flocked to states like Florida that, provide a better way of life. And certainly, going back again to the foundational principle, a safe place to raise a family.
What I love about this is a race to the top. So as someone in media and someone who lives in Texas, we've loved watching this example in this race. There's a little bit of competition, a little healthy competition between red states in the last 8 years.
Texas always was the state with the most pride. I would say, you knew people from Texas loved their state. And I think coming out of COVID, Floridians now, they love being Floridians. They're proud of it.
Are you still open for U-Hauls from New York? Is the state still open? People need to know.
We had a lot of U-Hauls coming in, and then we started opening the back door and finding illegals. So now our policy there has changed a little bit.
James, thanks so much for the time.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more right after this. Well, we have been having some fun in Washington, D.C., and we've been observing out on the streets. And Chris, we went out to lunch yesterday. It was a great day. And when we did, we saw the National Guard around town, as we've been, again, formally told that they are Nazis around town. And this is fascism.
It was weird.
How dare you?
They were doing things like fist bumping little kids, and like saying hi to people. Was a lot of fascism out there.
Very evil things happening.
I love that corner that they were hanging out in Chinatown is not a good corner. You'll see people pass out from drugs all the time. The walk that we did, you would have absolutely seen someone who was either overdosing or near overdosing if he'd walked it 5 weeks ago. And it was a 7-minute walk, maybe. So to see them out there and to see none of that is an excellent thing, both for the drug addicts, who I hope aren't overdosing elsewhere, and for the city itself. But that specific corner near the trains, near the metro station, the only thing I actually do miss about that is the 20-year encampment of the Black Israelites, because those guys are haters on the level that I'm a hater, and I feel they don't feel a kindred spirit with me at all. But I'm like,
You enjoy.
Yeah, I think like this is funny. Like you guys,
Yeah.
you guys hate. You hate everybody, and you yell in that microphone. And I think my favorite protester of all of the people was the guy who was following the Customs and Border Patrol agents around with a little speaker.
This was
blasting
yesterday. By the way.
Rammstein
This was yesterday.
Yeah.
to make it
Little
appear
boom
that they're-
box
Yeah,
on
little
the go.
boom box. I mean, I don't think that I'm going to guess that the black Customs and Border Patrol agents did not really dig the music, but there were definitely some mustache, middle-aged white guys in there who were like,
Only
"Hell yeah,
America."
Rammstein!" That's what I play in my
he's
head.
playing Rammstein for them, almost like their personal like music backup. You know,
Yeah,
like
I've
their
always
funky
wanted
music band.
Music.
They had like a
follow me.
soundtrack. I don't know if it was a protest or not for those guys. You're right. It was just giving them a soundtrack because they walked around. It'd be cool.
Yeah, I've got my own soundtrack now. I'm going to get that guy to follow me around.
But just to be clear, your point is the protesters weren't on the corner. I mean, it was cops and National Guard people just hanging out.
As we were leaving here yesterday, the crazy Handmaid's Tale ladies, they're back in DC. I feel like they actually never leave. There's always something. There's always an occasion to bust out the red robe and the little white bonnets.
So we see them, in procession, processing. And this has been going on for so long. It really, just looking at it, this is not a LARP anymore. Like this is their uniform, and they remind me of like one of these medieval cults. These people just kind of went fat crap crazy, and they just go out and process and do like weird public penance and stuff. I mean, and that's where they're at now. It's like this is not a protest anymore. I mean, they really get into this.
They're like less happy versions of the mermaids who hang out that weird subculture of theater kids who've just gone crazy with the internet. And I mean, nobody has ever. I don't know if anyone ever explains to them like, that's actually a story about Islam that they use Christianity for to make it more palatable. And if we're talking about surrogacy, well, then that's a different subject. What exactly are we protesting here? Are we third world surrogacy? Huh. So strange.
And Donald Trump came out in his news conference yesterday and debunked all of his death theories. Obviously, the president is still very much alive. But what my favorite part of that whole thing was like, he was up there going, Joe Biden didn't do press conferences for months. I go away for 2 days and you all think I'm dead.
Yeah.
Great point. Great point.
This is the way. I mean, this is where he's at. He's just in his prime, living his life,
Just watching security camera footage.
Watching security camera footage to figure out what happened.
Talking to the Daily Caller. He's just not doing things with them.
Yeah.
They've got FOMO.
Yeah.
They've got big FOMO.
Yeah, that is the psychology of it, isn't it? It's like he may as well be dead because they are dead to him, and they're dead to the American people increasingly.
One of the first,
less of an audience.
Yeah, they are. And one of the first constitutional crises I remember that they crowed about was when Trump and Melania sneaked away from the motorcade to when he was president-elect the first round to go out to a steak dinner. And they were outside the glass once they finally found him. They're like, the press pool is the linchpin of the American Republic. How dare we not be invited inside of the restaurant to watch him? This is an attack on democracy. And I thought, I don't know if these guys are doing so well mentally. They might be struggling.
I think they are struggling.
Things are alive and well, though, in Washington, D.C. We'll be here all week for NatCon. So we'll have hopefully some more stories from the streets of D.C. coming your way tomorrow. That's going to do it for us here tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.